Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Dear students, welcome to Insight Academy. In today's session, we are going to have a discussion of your GS Prelims test paper of Indian Polity and Constitution. In this paper, we have used the syllabus that is given to you in your test schedule. I hope all of you have attempted the paper and many of you have got very good marks. That indicates that you people are working hard. So keep doing better and better in every test, because the civil service examination should be a cakewalk for you. Once you work hard here, the actual exam would be much easier. The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. This is a famous military saying, and that applies to you also. So work hard and make the actual exam much easier. When you sit there, you should not sweat. You should be just walking like a champion. So let me start with the intro. As always, this paper has 100 questions, and 80 of these questions are from the syllabus given in your test schedule related to Indian polity and constitution. The remaining 20 questions are from current affairs or current developments of the period that is mentioned in your schedule. Every time keep referring to newspapers, keep referring to the online sources, because if you keep reading newspaper every day, your current affairs would be upgrading and you will not have to face trouble when you come close to exam. So current developments are going to play a very important role in your actual success, and that has to start from the very first day. Let me start from question number 1. We'll go from question number 1 to question 100, one by one. Always read the questions carefully. Questions are not that difficult. Understanding has to be proper. So you have to read carefully. Don't need to hurry and worry. Civil services exam requires accuracy, not speed. So accuracy is far, far more important here than speed. Ensure that whatever you know, you must tick right. Let's start with 1. Consider following statements with reference to preamble to the Constitution of India. So preamble of Indian Constitution, it seeks to secure political justice for all citizens. Of course, read the preamble carefully. You must know each and every word of it, because sometimes when you go in the interview and the board chairman will ask you, tell me what is the preamble of Constitution, and if you cannot tell, we the people of India give ourselves. If you cannot read word by word, then your performance goes down. So you should know preamble word by word or by heart. It seeks to ensure political justice to all citizens, but it doesn't mention economic liberty, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, not economic liberty. So it talks about liberty of religious ideas, your intellectual thinking, thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. Second is wrong here. It emphasizes equality of status and opportunity. Perfectly correct. It aims to promote unity and integrity. Earlier the word was unity, and 42nd Amendment Act added and integrity. So you should know preamble has today 85 words. The original preamble was having only 81 words. 81 words were chosen very carefully because 8 plus 1 make 9, and 9 is the biggest numeral in number system. So 9 number was chosen deliberately. All these things were discussed in Constituent Assembly. You must know these unique facts. When preamble was amended, preamble has been amended only once through 42nd Constitution Amendment Act 1976. You should know what was added and what was removed. So what was added was an integrity and 2 more words that you should find out. You should know each and everything. Is preamble part of Constitution? Preamble has come from objective resolution that was introduced by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. So there are certain Supreme Court cases related to preamble being a part of Constitution or not being a part of Constitution. You should know those cases also, because they will be helpful when you write main exam. Here number 2 is wrong. Which of the statements given above are correct? So 1, 3, 4 are correct. So option is B. We the people of India, having solemnly resolved. So socialist, secular, and integrity. So if you can read, these were the words added through 42nd Amendment Act. Question number 2. Many laws have been enacted since independence to give effect to various directive principles of state policy or DPSPs. In this context, consider following statements. The Wildlife Protection Act 72 and the Forest Conservation Act were enacted to give effect to Article 50, not Article 50, Article 48A. Article 48A deals with the wildlife and ecosystem. The establishment of Khadi and Village Industries Board seeks to implement the objectives under Article 43, that's correct. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act was enacted to give meaning to Article 40, that is Panchayati Raj. So second and third are correct here. Number 1 is wrong. How many of the statements given above are correct? Only 2. So keep reading and keep checking. You have to go through the sources properly. Whatever you read, make notes. Do not just rely on the book, make notes, because ultimately you can't read n number of books. You have to have 1 or 2 sets of notes with you to revise in the last moment. With reference to the Constituent Assembly of India, consider following statements. It was a sovereign body empowered to frame any constitution it deemed appropriate. That is correct. Sometimes it is said that Constituent Assembly of India was not sovereign because it was enacted under a British law, but that's not correct. It was enacted under a British law through the provisions made by British Parliament, but once it was elected, it was a sovereign entity. It was free to have any kind of constitution, to have any provision. Its members were indirectly elected rather than chosen through direct election. That's correct. The members of Constituent Assembly were elected through proportional representation with the help of provincial legislative assemblies. After independence, it also functioned as provisional parliament. So after completing the process of constitution making, it became full-fledged parliament. Before completing the process of constitution making, it was performing both the functions simultaneously. Sometimes it was meeting as Constituent Assembly to frame or to draft the constitution, and on some other occasions it was meeting as a parliament or legislative body to make the laws for independent India. So second and third are correct. Sorry, 1 is also correct. Which of the following? All are correct here. 1 to 3. D. Question number 4. Consider the following statements with reference to Part 4A. So Part 4A deals with fundamental duties. It shall be the duty of every citizen to abide by the Constitution. That's correct. Part 4A was added through 42nd Amendment Act on the recommendations of Sardar Suvarna Singh Committee. Citizens must protect and improve the natural environment. That's correct. Promoting equal justice and advancing the welfare of people is a fundamental duty. That is not the work of the citizens, that's the work of the state. So it cannot be, or it's not a fundamental duty. Citizens are expected to promote harmony. That's correct. They are not supposed to instigate conflict among communities, because social harmony is important for the development of India as a nation in different dimensions. So 1 to 4 are correct, third is wrong. How many? 3, 1 to 4. C. Question number 5. Consider following: freedom and dignity of individual. How many of the above may be considered elements of basic structure? So basic structure doctrine was put forward by Supreme Court in 1973, Keshwanand Bharati case. So Keshwanand Bharati case was one of the most important judicial pronouncements. In this case, Supreme Court said that Parliament has the right to amend any part of the Constitution, but Parliament cannot take away the basic structure. Parliament cannot destroy the basic structure. The power to amend Constitution cannot be used to destroy it. What was basic structure was not outlined in a comprehensive manner. Supreme Court said that what constitutes basic structure will be decided on a case-to-case basis. It cannot be put forward as a comprehensive list. Freedom and dignity of individual, that's correct. Limited powers of Parliament to amend Constitution, that's correct. Secular character of Constitution, all these three are part of basic structure. All these three constitute the basic structure of Indian constitution, Indian political system, all the three. These are some of the examples of the elements of basic structure. Question number 6, which of the following statements best describes key features of a democratic form of government? It ensures economic development of all citizens. It tries, endeavors, but it's not necessary that a democratic polity can ensure economic development of all citizens. It tries to ensure this because there are always limitations on resources. There are always problems of multiple different kinds. So it's not practically possible that it can ensure, but definitely it endeavors. It's not also necessary that democracy would be far more pro-development. Look at the Chinese system. China is far more developed than India because Chinese government is pushing very, very hard. Our government has also pushed very hard, but Chinese have been far more successful in spite of the fact that China is not a democracy. So it doesn't ensure, or it cannot ensure. It promotes and accommodates social diversity. Of course, democracy means taking care of everyone. Inclusiveness. Inclusiveness is one of the fundamental pillars of democracy. Democracy does not leave anyone out. Democracy tries to take everyone with it. Here, one person doesn't count. Here, the view of everyone counts. It upholds the dignity and freedom of individuals. That is very, very correct. 2 and 3. Select the correct answers. Which of these are statement? So, 2 and 3, that is B. Question number 7. Consider following pairs with respect to Constituent Assembly. A Union Constitution Committee, how many pairs are correctly matched? Was headed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Union Powers Committee was also headed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Steering Committee was headed by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was the head of Drafting Committee, or he was the chairman of Drafting Committee. So how many of these are correctly matched? First is wrong. Second is wrong because this is Dr. Prasad. And third is also wrong because this is Jawaharlal Nehru. So how many? None of these pairs is correctly matched. All the committees of Constituent Assembly you must know. Who was the chairman, who was the head, what were the functions, number of committees, sessions, because questions are being asked by UPSC repeatedly from these aspects. Question number 8. With respect to the fundamental duties, consider the following statements. They help the courts in examining the constitutional validity of a law. Earlier it was believed that fundamental rights are absolute, or fundamental rights are superior than fundamental duties or DPSPs. But Supreme Court has over the years given verdict that one part of the Constitution is not necessarily superior or inferior to the other part of the Constitution. So while interpreting fundamental rights, while ensuring that citizens have rights, at the same time Supreme Court takes into account what DPSP says or what fundamental duties say. So rights and responsibilities have to be maintained in a balanced manner. The fundamental duties can be extended to foreigners. Fundamental duties are only for citizens. Foreigners have no duty. So this concept cannot be extended to foreigners. Some fundamental rights are extended to foreigners, but fundamental duties are applicable only to Indian citizens. Which is correct? Only one. Question number 9. Consider following statements regarding various parts of Indian Constitution. Fundamental rights are non-justiciable. Fundamental rights are justiciable. That's what makes them fundamental. Fundamental rights are justiciable. In case of violation of any fundamental right of any citizen, the person can approach High Court under Article 226 or Supreme Court under Article 32. So that is a very special feature of fundamental rights. You do not have to go through the normal judicial process. You do not have to go to the district court, session courts, and then higher courts. You can go to High Court directly under Article 226 or Supreme Court under Article 32. Fundamental duties are non-justiciable. That's correct. Fundamental duties cannot be enforced through court. Directive principles of state policy are non-justiciable. Of course, these are merely guiding principles because at that time, the constitution makers were aware that India was having limited resources and extreme requirements. So it was emphasized that as and when India will develop, will have more resources, the public pressure, the citizens' pressure will force government to enact policies to implement DPSPs. So DPSPs are like guiding principles. So these are norms which you should be following while drafting the policies. 23 are correct. How many are not correct? So you have to read instructions carefully because sometimes you'll have not correct. Only one is not correct. Question number 10. Consider the following statements about role of constitution in democratic polity. So think of constitution. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Constitution is a source of authority of the government. Constitution divides or distributes the power among different organs of a state. Constitution takes care of the welfare. Constitution takes care of the rights of citizens. So Constitution is the kind of operating system of our democratic political system. That way you have to understand it. It serves as a restraint on the powers of government, of course, fundamental rights, DPSPs. These are kind of restraints on the powers of government. It provides a framework for political self-determination because people get the right to participate in formation of government. They get the right to vote. So that is the way people participate in decision making. It offers a peaceful mechanism for achieving social change. Of course, if elections are held and elections are provided by constitution, sessions of parliament are held regularly. Again, constitution says that you cannot have a gap of 6 months between two sessions. And then these kind of restrictions ensure that will of the people is getting expressed in the laws of the land. 1, 2, 3, all are correct here. Question number 11. Consider the following conditions regarding grant of Indian citizenship. The person is a citizen of another country but is ready to renounce. That's how citizenship through registration happens. A person possesses sufficient knowledge of any of the Indian languages. So whatever the languages we have in its schedule of constitution, person should have the sufficient knowledge to communicate, to understand at least one of those languages to be Indian citizen. The person has been residing in India for preceding 12 years. Earlier it was 7 years, it was changed to 12 years. So this is wrong. 1 and 2. So naturalization, citizenship through descent, citizenship through registration, all these kind of things you should know. Consider the following statements with respect to preamble to the Constitution of India. The ideals enshrined in the preamble are derived from objective resolution proposed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. That's correct. The 42nd Constitution Amendment Act added 3 new words to the preamble. Correct. So socialist, secular, integrity. These are 3 new words. But in reality, what you have to see, if you have to go a little deeper in understanding, this was the 4th word added. So this was the 4th word added, not 3 words added. The 1976 42nd Constitution Amendment Act added 4 words to the Constitution. So when you go through this statement, you'll find as if this is correct. But in reality, this is not correct because 42nd Amendment Act added 4 words, socialist, secular and integrity. So this is a wrong statement. Which of the statement given above are correct? Only one. Only one is correct. So not 3 words, 4 words. Originally, Constitution was having 81 words. Now Preamble was having 81 words, and now Preamble has 85 words. You know the maths. You can deduct and find there are 4 words. Question number 13. With respect to the Article 19 of Constitution of India, consider following statements. The rights under this article are not available to persons like companies. Of course, companies are not considered entities. Corporations are not considered individuals. Corporations are not considered citizen because corporation could be a transnational in character. So Supreme Court said that corporations and companies are not individuals, they cannot have the rights available to citizens. Right to form cooperative societies is added by way of 97 Constitution Amendment Act 2011. That's correct. Both are correct here. See, all the amendments to the Constitution from one till the last, you have to know each, in which part amendment was made, what was the amendment, what was changed, what was deleted, because many questions are asked every time on issues related to Constitution amendments. Consider the following statement regarding the rationale behind making DPSPs non-justiciable. I told you earlier, resource issue is the biggest factor. At the time of independence, government was to be given certain guiding principles, but resources were limited. Dr. Ambedkar was asked that if we are not making them justiciable, what's the point of having DPSPs? So he said that by having DPSPs as a part of Constitution, citizens will get enlightened. Citizens will know what can be expected from the government, and as resource availability with the government, with the nation improve with the passage of time, the public pressure, the citizens' pressure would force government to formulate policies in accordance with the provisions of DPSPs. The state has limited financial and administrative capacity at the time of independence, that is correct. The vast diversity and socio-economic backwardness, requirements were huge, resources were less, the government had to be given freedom to choose where to focus first, where to focus second, where to focus third. You cannot bind the hands of a democratically elected government. That was the reason. Both are correct here. 15. Consider the following aspects of Constitution of India. Admission or establishment of new states. Which of the above can be amended by simple majority? Part 1 of the Constitution, having Article 1 to 4, deals with union and its territories. Any change in the territories of states, names, boundaries, etc. does not require 2/3 majority. Article 4 says that it is not considered as an amendment under Article 368. So no need of that procedure. Use of official language. Elections to parliament, state legislature, seats if you have to vary, then you will need amendment to constitution. You will need a special majority. But election related issues can be settled through simple majority. 1 to 3, all are correct. 16. Consider the following statements regarding preamble to the Constitution. It declares that Constitution derives its authority from the people, we the people of India. It means people are supreme. This is known as principle of popular sovereignty. That people are supreme. The Constitution makers got the power to make Constitution from the people. The government of the day gets power to operate, gets power to formulate policy from the people. So we do not have the system of direct democracy, but we have indirect democracy. The people participate in decision making, the people participate in policy formulation, in law making indirectly through their representatives. So remember that. It outlines the objectives and guiding principles of Constitution. That's correct. It serves as a source of power. Supreme Court said many times in past that preamble to the Constitution is not a source of power. It's like a window through which you can see entire Constitution scheme. It's like the soul of Constitution. It's like a kind of intro to the Constitution, but it is not a source of power to the government, or nobody can use any power just because something is mentioned in the preamble to the Constitution. It is non-justiciable. Of course, it cannot be enforced. It's non-justiciable. It's only having the set of guiding principles. Not correct, you have to see only one. 1 and 2 are correct, third is incorrect, so not correct. Only one of these statements is incorrect. 17. Consider following statements with reference to preventive detention under Article 22. A person detained under PD must be informed. There is no compulsion for anyone to be informed in case of preventive detention. Within 24 hours. The provisions say as soon as the government finds it feasible. 24 hours is for normal detention, not preventive detention or punitive detention. You have two kinds of detention. One is detention for punishment, that is punitive detention. Somebody is arrested, somebody is picked up because crime has been committed. And if somebody is arrested because person may commit a crime, so to avoid the commitment of that crime, detention is carried out, and that is known as preventive detention. The powers to enact laws on preventive detention rest with the states as well as with the parliament. Both can make laws related to preventive detention depending on the subjects handled by both entities. Both are wrong. Which one is correct? Neither one nor two. Question number 18. Which of the following rights have been interpreted by Supreme Court as flowing from right to life and liberty? So Article 21 has been the source of many inferred rights. Inferred rights means the rights available to citizens, but they are not explicitly mentioned in Constitution. Supreme Court has interpreted Article 21, right to life and liberty, in such a way that many more fundamental rights have flowed out of it. Right to travel abroad, that's considered as a fundamental right. Right to have reputation, right against public hanging, right against handcuffing, all of these are associated with prominent cases. So try to see which case was the source of these rights inferred through Article 21. I'll tell you the first one, right to travel abroad was Menka Gandhi case. Similarly, other cases you have to know, because cases in polity are like equations in chemistry. Whenever you write anything, you have to put a case as a reference in main exam. Without putting a case, it is more of a story. You have to put authentic cases, authentic data related to Supreme Court verdicts. All the four. Consider following statements with respect to fundamental rights and fundamental duties under the Indian Constitution. The fundamental duties are inspired from erstwhile Soviet Constitution. That's correct. Sardar Savarn Singh Committee was appointed by government, and on the recommendations of that committee, 42nd Constitution Amendment Act was enacted, through which fundamental duties were inserted in our Constitution. The enjoyment of rights is dependent on fulfillment of duties? No. Fundamental rights are justiciable. Fundamental duties are non-justiciable. So there is no direct dependence. They are expected to be followed, but it's not compulsory. Only one. 20. Consider following rights and privileges. The right against discrimination on grounds of religion, caste. How many of the above are available to citizens but not available to aliens? First one, because employment, these kind of discriminations are applicable only for citizens. Right to equality. Employment is available to citizens, not to the foreigners. Right to vote in election, again this is citizen-centric, not available to foreigners. Right to contest members for the membership of parliament. All of these are available only to citizens. These are not available to foreigners or aliens or non-citizens. All the four. Look at the instruction. How many of these are available? So not available also, that also you have to see carefully, because sometimes there will be not, and you will end up missing not. You will end up making one question wrong. One question wrong means not just 2 marks, 2.67 marks are lost, and you get pushed in ranking by more than 5,000 students. So be careful. Consider the following. Which of the above make the case for compulsory termination of Indian citizenship? So in what cases, in what situation, in what kind of violation can the citizenship of an individual be terminated or get lost? Obtaining citizenship through fraud. If some foreigner is obtaining fraud, citizenship can be terminated. Showing disloyalty. If you are Indian citizen, if I am Indian citizen, if we are Indian citizens, we have to respect our flag, we have to respect our constitution, we have to respect our nation. There is nothing above nation. Nation is above everything, because we can survive only by being together. And if we get internally divided, then sooner or later somebody will come and subjugate us as we have faced in the past. Ordinarily residing out of India for 7 years continuously, that is also ground. All the three are the grounds that can be used for the termination of citizenship. 22. Consider following statements. Only an aggrieved person can seek a quo warranto. Quo warranto means show me the warrant, show me the authority. This is sought by court, high courts or Supreme Court, if a person has occupied a public office illegally. So under what warrant, under what authority you are occupying this public office? So court can seek, not individuals. Aggrieved person cannot seek, court can seek. This is wrong. Mandamus means I command. Mandamus cannot be issued against private individual. Mandamus can be issued only against an officer of the state, entity of a state, because if the officer of a state, if the state entity fails to perform its legitimate or its due duty, then the court can say you have to do it. That's why you are occupying this office. So I command. That is mandamus. Certiorari means quashing. Can be issued against administrative authorities and lower courts. So if a court or an administrative entity has decided a case by violating its jurisdiction, so the higher court can ask, transfer the case to me and I quash your verdict. That is certiorari. 2 and 3, only 2. 23. Consider the following statements with respect to right to education under Article 21A. This provision makes only elementary education fundamental right. So this is correct. This is applicable only 6 to 14 years, 8 years of primary education to every kid in India. This provision was added through 86 Amendment Act in 2002. And you have to know when did it come into force. Because sometimes the question can be asked, when did 86 Amendment Act come into force? And that was 1st April 2004, not in 2002. So that date is also important because that was in 2004. 1 and 2. Not correct, neither 1 nor 2. Both are correct here. So option is D. 24. Consider the following. Right against tapping of telephone conversation. How many of the above are included in right to freedom of speech and expression? Of course, nobody can tap your telephone. Right to know about government activities, RTI. Right against imposition of pre-censorship. You should have right to have pre-censorship or without censored news or non-censored news. If there is censorship, there is no information availability. And without information, citizens cannot exercise their rights. This is what Supreme Court said. Right to news propagate one's views. That's correct. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are part of freedom of speech and expression guaranteed by Constitution of India. Consider following statement with respect to Constitution amendment bills as provided under Article 368. These can be introduced in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. A CAA or CAB, Constitution Amendment Bill, can be introduced in either of the Houses of Parliament. Both the houses have equal strength or equal power or equal authority with respect to Constitution amendment. Introduction of the bill does not require prior permission. Correct. The bill the President must give. President cannot enjoy pocket veto. President cannot enjoy suspensive veto. The President of India has 2 kinds of veto, and these are known as procedural veto. These are not absolute veto. President cannot deny to sign a bill passed by Parliament by following the proper process. But President can let that bill lie on his or her desk for an indefinite period of time. That is known as pocket veto. That President has put the bill in his pocket and President is now busy somewhere. The suspensive veto is when President can say you have to reconsider it. In case of Constitution Amendment Bill, President has to sign. President has to give assent to the bill. So 2 and 3 are correct here. Option is C. 26. The doctrine of basic structure has evolved over time with the judgments of Supreme Court. In this context, Consider the following pairs and Supreme Court. Name of the case, elements of basic structure. So Keshwanand Bharati case, these were Indira Nehru Gandhi case, that is 1975 case, judicial review. Bhim Singh Ji case, socio-economic justice. I.R. Coelho, very prominent case, separation of powers. All the four are correctly matched. So which of these are matched, you have to see. All are correctly matched here. That is D. '27. With respect to the Regulating Act of 1773, consider following statements. It designated the Governor of Bengal as the Governor General of Bengal. That's correct. Governor of Bengal was declared Governor General of Bengal, and this Governor General of Bengal designation remained till 1833. The Charter Act of 1833 created the office of Governor General of India. So you should know who was the first Governor General of Bengal, that is Warren Hastings. First Governor General of India was William Bentinck. Governors of Bombay and Madras presidencies were made subordinate to Governor General of Bengal in matters of war and peace. That's correct. Pitt's India Act 1784 subjugated the Bombay and Madras presidencies to the authority of Presidency of Bengal in all the matters. Remember that also. It provided for the establishment of Supreme Court at Calcutta, not at Delhi. Calcutta, and that came into existence in 1774 with Sir Eliza Impey as the first Chief Justice. 1 and 2. D. 28. The Indian Council Act of 1909 and the Government of India Act 1919 were considered to be the turning point in the history of colonial rule. The Act of 1909 introduced the concept of separate electorates for Muslims as well as for landlords. The Act of 1919 expanded it to 6: Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians and Europeans. Perfectly correct statement. The Act of 1919 introduced for the first time bicameralism and direct election. That is correct. So this Act provided for a bicameral legislature at center, and direct elections were also introduced for the first time. Both are correct. Not correct, D. Neither one, no two. Consider following statements regarding origin and acceptance of idea of Constituent Assembly for India. The idea of Constituent Assembly in India was first proposed by Congress in 1935, not 1929 Lahore session, 1935. The August Offer of 1940 marked for the first formal acceptance of the Constituent Assembly. August Offer said that after the end of war, steps shall be taken to set up a Constituent Assembly to draft a new constitution for India. For the first time, the British government accepted Indian demand to set up a Constituent Assembly to draft a new constitution for independent India or for India. The Cripps Mission of 1942 proposed 2 separate Constituent Assemblies. That is wrong. The Cripps Mission also said that steps will be taken. Both were same. Only difference what was there, that here certain conditions were imposed. That Indians, the drafting of new constitution shall primarily, so word was primarily, the drafting of new constitution shall primarily be the responsibility of Indians themselves, subject to the fulfillment of British responsibilities related to defense of India services, treaties with native states and rights of minorities. Here all those conditions were removed. And that's why it is said that for the first time the Cripps Mission or the Cripps Plan accepted the demand of complete independence, though tacitly. In 1940, the idea was to grant dominion status to India. In 1942, British government accepted that India can have complete independence. So 1 and 3 are wrong. 1 and 3 are wrong. Second is correct. Is correct 2 only. 30. Consider following statements regarding the composition of Constituent Assembly of India. The members of Constituent Assembly were directly, not directly, indirectly elected, so that is wrong. They were elected by members of provincial legislatures in accordance with the system of proportional representation. The assembly included representatives of princely states as well as British Indian provinces, that's correct. The seats in Constituent Assembly were allocated to provinces and princely states in the ratio of their population, that is correct. The assembly included members from various communities, so all communities were represented here. It was not the assembly of one or just few communities. Every community was included. Effort was made to include as many diverse communities as possible. 1 is wrong, 2, 3, 4 correct. How many are correct? 3. 31. Consider following statements regarding functioning of Constituent Assembly. The Assembly's constitution making and legislative functions were carried out on different days and under different presiding officers. That's correct. Constituent Assembly was functioning as Parliament as well as the constitution making body. Whenever it was meeting for Constituent Assembly function, whenever it was meeting to draft the constitution or to discuss the issues related to the making of constitution, the president was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Whenever it was meeting for legislative purposes to make the law, to discuss the law, it was not president, it was a speaker. A speaker was J.V. Mavalankar. So J.V. Mavalankar presided legislative meetings. Dr. Rajendra Prasad presided Constituent Assembly meetings, so both are opposite here. So be careful while you read. This is wrong. Which of the statement is correct? Only one. Consider the following statements regarding the functions performed by the Constituent Assembly of India. It ratified India's membership of Commonwealth in May 1949, that's correct. It adopted national anthem, national flag, 24 January 1950. National song, flag was in 47, so that's correct. This is also correct. It also adopted national flag, July 47. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the first president on the same day. This happened 24 January 1950. Correct. How many? All the 4 are correct. D. 33. Consider following statements. Statement 1. Constituent Assembly of India continued to function even after the Constitution came into force on 26 January, but it became a parliament or it became a legislative body. The Constituent Assembly of India continued as provisional parliament till 1952 when elections were over. Elections were held in 51, 52, starting from October 51. Which of the following statements respective are correct? Both are correct. And it is a explanation also. So Constituent Assembly continued to function because it became a provisional parliament or it became the Indian Parliament of that time. A. 34. Consider the following statements with respect to drafting committee. Drafting committee was chaired by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, formed by the Constituent Assembly. It was tasked with the drafting constitution based on the objective resolution. Objective resolution was a guiding line. It was not a kind of comprehensive statement. It was just to tell, okay, this should be the fundamental objectives of our constitution. That became the source of preamble. It was chaired by Dr. Ambedkar, that's correct. Composition kept on changing because of resignation and death, that is right. It was also empowered to reconcile the differences between the union and provincial constitution proposed. No. It had to make a constitution. It was free to do whatever it wanted to do. It was not there to reconcile the existing provisions. It was to make a new constitution. Only 2 is correct. It had the representatives from all princely states and British provinces to ensure equal participation. It's not about equal participation. It's about participation. Participation was dependent on the ratio of population. Which of the statement correctly relates? So look at once again. Only 2 is correct. 1, 3, 4 are wrong, only 2. 35. Consider following statements. January 26 was selected as the date of commencement of Constitution because it was the day on which for the first time in 1930, Indians celebrated first Independence Day. The Lahore Congress of December 1929 decided to fight for complete independence. Purna Swaraj resolution was adopted on the banks of river Ravi under the presidency of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru in December 1929. And in that session itself, it was decided that 26 January 1930 shall be celebrated as first Independence Day by all the Indians throughout the country. In the memory of that day, 26 January was selected as the date of commencement of Indian Constitution or date of emergence of Indian Republic. This is Republic Day. That is wrong. It's not because of the passing of Independence of India Act. With the commencement of the Constitution, the Indian Independence Act and Government of India Act were repealed. That's what Article 395 says. Article 395 of Indian Constitution. This is correct. 1 is incorrect, statement 2 is correct, option is D. 36. Consider the following statements regarding the making of original Indian Constitution. Prem Bihari Narayan Raizada was the calligrapher. Correct. Nandlal Bose was involved in decorating and illustrating the Constitution book. B.N. Rao was not a secretary, he was constitutional advisor. He was not a secretary, he was the constitutional advisor or legal advisor to the Constituent Assembly. 1 and 2 are correct. 37. India's constitution is often described as one of the lengthiest in the world. Which of the following are the valid reasons behind it? The geographical and social diversity of India necessitated detailed provisions. That's correct. India was gaining independence after centuries of subjugation. Indian leaders were very, very careful that they must get the best provisions for entire world. So entire world was scanned through. All the constitutions were read by them, were reviewed by them, and they wanted to pick up the best of the provisions so that there is no ambiguity. There is minimum use of discretion because discretion often leads to dictatorship. That's why they had detailed provisions. Adoption of the Government of India Act 1935 as a structure, that was also extremely bulky stuff, so that can contain provisions regarding each and every aspect of governance. So makers of constitution could not go less than that. Constituent Assembly comprised largely of political revolutionaries with minimal legal training. That's wrong. They were legal experts. B.N. Rao, Dr. Ambedkar himself, Jawaharlal Nehru, all of these were famous lawyers. They were legal experts of the time. 1 and 2. Matters normally governed by conventions or ordinary legislations in the democracies were also incorporated because our constitution makers did not want to leave anything to chance. They wanted to put down as many things as possible in written form so that in future nobody gets any confusion. This is correct. So except 3, 1, 2, 4 are correct, so option is A. 38. With reference to the nature of Indian federal system as described by Constitution, consider the following statements. The Constitution of India establishes a system that incorporates both federal and unitary features. Article 1 says India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. Constitution of India does not use the term federal or federation anywhere. Our Constitution is federal in spirit, but unitary in its form, because it states that India is a union of states, but provisions ensure that there is a federal relationship, there is a federation in India, so that the states as well as the center can coexist without breaching the boundaries of each other. The presence of a single constitution and a single citizenship reflects India's adherence to non-classical federation. We have a non-classical. Non-classical means unconventional kind of federation. In America is a typical conventional classical federation, American citizens are citizens of their respective states, say Texas, and citizens of their country, say USA. They have dual citizenship. We have only single citizenship. Division of powers and supremacy of constitution are key indicators. That's correct. The appointment of governors by center is a unique feature that strengthens or that weakens basically. That strengthens the unitary aspects. Because governors are appointed by president, the governors stay in office during the pleasure of president. So they are basically the nominees of central government and they act as agent of center in states. That is a violation of federation. This is a unitary spirit. So this doesn't strengthen federation. This actually weakens federation. And you can see the tussle between chief ministers and governors, particularly in opposition ruled states, is very, very common. So remember that. Which of the statements are correct? 1 and 3, 2 and 4 are wrong. A. 39. Consider following statement with respect to Indian federalism. The term federation is explicitly used? No, federation is not used anywhere. Article 1 says India, that is Bharat, shall be the union of states, not federation. The Indian federation is not result of any arrangement, any agreement. That's correct. States in India have the constitution right to secede. They cannot secede. States did not come into this union out of their free will, and they cannot go out of this union through their free will. India is one because we are together. India cannot remain India if any state is no more part of it. So we are India because we are one integral component. India has been described by scholars as exhibiting features of both federalism and unitarism. That's correct. 2 and 4 are correct, 1 and 3 are wrong. How many of the statements reflect the nature of federalism? 2 statements. That is 2 and 4. 40. With respect to parliamentary form of government followed in India, consider following statement. The parliamentary system is based on the principle of cooperation and coordination. State and center, 3 arms of the state, judiciary, legislature and executive, all have to cooperate, all have to coordinate with each other to ensure that the duties of a state, the functions of a state are performed in best possible manner for the maximum possible benefit of citizens. The Constitution establishes parliamentary system not only at the center but also in states. That is correct. Which of the statements given above are not correct? Both are correct. Neither is not correct. So D. Because both are correct here. 41. Consider following statements. The scope of judicial review power of the Supreme Court in India is narrower than that what exists in US. In US, judiciary is supreme. Constitution is what judiciary says. In India, constitution is supreme. Judiciary is not supreme. So in India, Supreme Court doesn't have unlimited judicial review. In US, Supreme Court has unlimited power of judicial review. Number 2, American Constitution provides for due process of law against that of process established by law contained in Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution has both. Actually, initially we used to follow the procedure established by law. That is what is mentioned explicitly. And now we are following due process of law. In due process of law, not only the procedure established has to be lawful, but the process of making the law to establish that procedure also has to be lawful, or it also has to be just, fair and reasonable. So technically this is correct because Constitution of India focuses on procedure established by law. As far as terminology is concerned, the judicial interpretations are little different. So this is correct. So because of American due process of law, the Supreme Court in America gets extensive power to review any act of the government, or power judicial review becomes extensive. So that is why it's A explanation also. Consider following pairs with respect to fundamental rights and their corresponding articles. Right to equality, that's correct, 14 to 18. Cultural education rights are 29-30, not this. Right to freedom, 19 and 20, these are right to freedom, but right to freedom of religion are 25 to 28. So this is wrong. 1 and 3 are correct. How many are not correctly matched? So not correctly matched or correctly matched, in both the cases there are 2. 43. The Constitution of India stands for a secular state. In this context, consider following provisions. The term secular was added to the preamble through 42nd Amendment Act 1976. Secular, socialist and integrity. Article 17 provides that a state shall not discriminate. Article 15 provides that a state shall not discriminate on any ground, on the grounds of religion, while making employment under the state. So caste, sex, place of birth, descent, religion, all these grounds are part of Article 15, not 17. Article 17 is protection against untouchability. So 1 is correct, 2nd is wrong, not correct, only 2. With reference to the concept of universal franchise, universal adult franchise, consider the statement, every citizen of India who is not less than 18 years of age is entitled to vote. That's correct, 18 years is the age. Earlier it used to be 21, but 61st Amendment Act 1988 made it 18. 2nd is also correct. The right to vote in India is subject to discrimination grounds. No education, no property. This is the meaning of universal adult suffrage. No qualification of property or education or anything else is applied. This is wrong, 1 and 2. 45. Consider following statements with respect to 97th Constitution Amendment Act. Recall, this came in one of the questions. And what was added? Cooperative societies were added to the Constitution. It made the right to form cooperative society fundamental right under Article 19, that's correct. It included a new directory principle of state policy 43B to promote cooperatives. A new chapter entitled 9A, not 9A, 9B. 9A is related to panchayats and municipalities. In fact, municipalities, panchayat is 9, 9A is municipality. So 9B was added. This is wrong. 1 and 2 are correct. A. 46. Several provisions of the Indian Constitution have been inspired from foreign constitutions. In this context, look at the list. Suspension of fundamental rights. This provision was taken from German Weimar Constitution. This German Weimar Constitution was drafted by Germany after World War I or in 1919. Second, procedure for the amendment of Constitution. Procedure for the amendment of Constitution was taken from South Africa, so this is number 2. Advisory jurisdiction of Supreme Court was taken from Canadian Constitution. Republic, ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity. Some say French, some say US. Here you have only French. Otherwise, if it is US, that also will be correct. So, this French is not to be confused with this. The French is to be matched with number 3. So this is not matched. How many of the pairs given above are not correctly matched? None of the pairs is correctly matched. All the 4 pairs are not correctly matched. Option D. 47. The preamble to the Constitution of India mentions India as a sovereign state in this context. Seat. India is free to formulate its own domestic and foreign policies. That's the meaning of sovereignty. The government of India is not required to seek anyone's permission. The Parliament of India the government of India does not need anybody's permission to make any policy for internal or external purposes. India can acquire territory, India can cede its territory, India won't need permission from anybody. That is sovereignty. So option is C, both are correct. 48. With reference to democratic system in India, consider following statements. India follows a system of indirect democracy. Indirect democracy, what happens? The citizens have the right to vote on specific policies through plebiscite, through similar kind of instruments. So India does not provide that right to citizens to vote on specific policies. In India, the policies are formulated, the laws are formulated by the representatives of citizens. So citizens participate in lawmaking process only indirectly. The Indian parliamentary system ensures that executive is accountable to legislature. That's correct. A representative democracy includes both parliamentary and presidential system. That is also correct. In presidential system, the way you have in America, the way you have in France, you have a democracy. In parliamentary system, the way we have in India or in Britain, that is also democracy. 2 and 3 are correct. Option is B. 49. Preamble to the Constitution of India mentions India as a republic. In this context, consider following statements. The head of the state is always elected directly for a fixed period. Head of the state is not elected directly. Head of the state in India is elected indirectly. That is wrong. The political sovereignty is vested in the people, not in the single individual. That's correct. It's a collective democracy, collective sovereignty. It's not one person, it's India or the country as a whole. All public offices are open to every citizen without any discrimination. That is correct. 2 and 3. How many of the above is our correct implication of being republican states? Only 2. That is B. Consider following statements with respect to Constitution of India. The preamble is a part of the Constitution and can be amended. Keshwanand Bharati case, Supreme Court said, preamble is a part of Constitution and can be amended in the same manner as other parts are amended, but this amendment power cannot be used to destroy the basic structure of Constitution. Preamble has been amended only once, that is in 1976 through 42nd Amendment Act. Not twice. That is wrong. So preamble has been amended only once, not twice. Which of the statement is correct? Only one is correct. Second is incorrect, C. 51. Consider following statements with respect to Constitution of India. India is described as an indestructible union of destructible states. That's the meaning of union. There are 3 kinds of political entities, union type. Indestructible entity consisting of destructible states. The names, boundaries, size of Indian states can be altered by Indian Parliament without even the consent of a state. But if it is a federation, the way America is there, federation is an indestructible entity made up of indestructible states. So American government cannot change the name and boundary of Texas or California or all its states. Third is confederation. The way you have European Union, confederation is destructible entity made up of indestructible states. So European Union can be destroyed, but not France or Italy or its members. The way Britain left, European Union can be closed down one day, but Britain, France or others cannot be. Parliament is authorized to form new states, alter the areas without their consent. That's correct. That's why India is a union type. So both are correct, and that is explanation also. With the reference to Article 3 of Indian Constitution, which deals with the reorganization of state, consider following statements. A bill for the creation of alteration of a state can be introduced in Parliament only with the prior recommendation of President. But at the same time, you have to see that Article 253 says that if President finally gives assent, the procedure is considered complete. So you need to see both. Before recommending a bill, President has to refer the bill to concerned state legislature with a time limit that you have to consider this within this time limit. If the state legislature considers it, approves it, disapproves it, procedure is considered complete. Both are correct. C. 53. With respect to States Reorganization Commission, consider following statements. The State Reorganization Commission was headed by Justice Fazal Ali, that's correct. K. M. Panikkar, Hardinath Kunjuru. K. M. Panikkar and Hardinath Kunjuru were two other members of it. Commission recommended the formation of a state not primarily. Commission recommended the formation of a state primarily on language, but also considered administrative convenience. That's correct. So primarily language and other grounds were also taken into account. Administrative convenience, availability of resources, all those things were also taken into account. Both are correct. Not correct, neither one nor two. 54. With reference to provisions of citizenship at the commencement of Constitution, consider following statements. A person domiciled in India could become citizen if either of his parents was born. That's correct. A person who migrated to India from Pakistan after July 1940, it could be automatically, not automatically, person would have to register, apply for registration, and person could get citizenship. That is wrong. A person who migrated to Pakistan after March 47 but returned before this could become. That is wrong. So this is a date you have to see both. You have to see in close context. It's wrong. Person could become citizen before this through registration, after that through the entire process given in the law enacted in 1955 or Citizenship Act enacted 1955. A person born in undivided India but living in another country can be granted citizenship if person registers with Indian diplomat or consular in that country. 1 and 4 are correct, 2 and 3 are wrong. Option is B. How many are correct? You have to choose correct one. 55. With reference to acquisition of Indian citizenship by birth, consider following statements. A person born in India between January 26, 50 and June 30, considered as a citizen regardless of nationality of the parents. That's correct. This was a limitation and this was rectified later. A person born in India after December 3, 2004 can be considered as an Indian citizen if both parents are citizens of India. Children of foreign diplomats or enemies, aliens cannot acquire. That's correct. So all are correct here. Consider following. Ravi was born and educated in Rajasthan but later moved to Kerala for work. After residing there for a year, applies for admission to state-run college and sits in a state-level government job competitive examination. He is denied both opportunities on the ground that he is not a local resident. In the context of the Indian citizenship framework and constitution provisions, which of the following best describes the position here, constitution legal position here? Denial is valid as states have exclusive control to restrict migration. States do not have control over migration, complete control over migration. The Constitution permits different sets of civil rights. Civil rights are same in every state. The state government can make domicile as a requirement for admission in educational and government jobs. That's correct. A person must obtain domicile status to exercise any right outside. That is also wrong, so option should be C. 57. With reference to the different categories of persons residing abroad, consider following. NRI is somebody who stays outside the country for more than 6 months. So that person's, this is basically tax status. NRI is not a citizenship status, this is tax status. This comes from Indian Income Tax Act. Because person will pay tax in that country where he stays for more than 6 months in a year. A person of Indian origin, PIO, is necessarily an Indian citizen. No, he is not citizen of India. Person gets certain rights to come and visit India, but he's not citizen of India. He's somebody forefather, might be citizen of India way back sometimes in past. OCI is registered under Citizenship Act, but is not a citizen. Of course, OCI gets some privileges to visit, to stay for a longer duration without registering with police. So OCI card is considered an important privilege for people of Indian origin. But OCI is not a citizen. 1 and 3 are correct. 58. Consider following statements regarding Government of India Act 1935. It provided for the establishment of an All India Federation consisting of British Indian provinces and princely states. So idea of federation was proposed, though it could never come into existence because conditions associated could not be fulfilled. It introduced provincial autonomy. It means the system of classification of subjects into transferred category and reserved category was brought to an end. So the system of transferred category, reserved category or diarchy was introduced at provincial level by the Act of 1919. The Act of 1935 shifted diarchy at center. Diarchy was abolished at province, was shifted at center. It proposed a bicameral legislature at center and unicameral in provinces. That's not correct because many of the provinces were having bicameral legislatures. It did not impose any such limitation. 1 and 2, okay, 4 number. It continued the system of communal representation, extended the communal representation further to women and working class. How many are correct? Only 1 is wrong, 3 are correct. 15. Consider following pairs with respect to first cabinet of Free India. John Mathai was a railway and transport minister. R.K. Shanmugam Chetty was finance minister and Jagjeevan Ram was minister of labor. So you have to see first is not matched. How many are correct, not correctly matched? 1 is not matched, 2 is not matched, 3 is matched. So 2 are not correctly matched. Option is B. 60. Consider the following statement with respect to Constituent Assembly of India. It included representatives from diverse political, regional and social backgrounds. India being a diverse nation, every effort was made to ensure that as many communities, as many religions, as many languages, as many socio-economic groups as possible were represented or could be represented in Constituent Assembly. Mahatma Gandhi was not a member of Constituent Assembly. It's wrong. 1 is correct, 2nd is incorrect. With reference to significance of fundamental rights in Indian Constitution, consider following statements. They are intended to safeguard individual liberty and prevent the establishment of an authoritarian regime. That's correct. They function as constitutional limitations on both executive and legislature. Fundamental rights are the power available to citizen and the restraints on the authority or the power of state organs. They are termed fundamental because they are mentioned? No. They are termed fundamental because they are fundamental to our dignified life. They are fundamental to our democratic political system. They are fundamental because they are protected by a special procedure. Any aggrieved individual could approach High Court or Supreme Court directly without following the normal process of judicial rehabilitation or judicial system. 1 and 2 are correct. 3rd is wrong. With reference to the nature of fundamental rights under the Indian Constitution, consider following statements. Fundamental rights are not absolute. Of course, they are not absolute. They are subject to reasonable restrictions. Because absolute right result in absolute anarchy. Absolute rights are impossible in a democracy. Your freedom ends where my knowledge begins. My rights end where your rights start. So we have to maintain a balance between the rights of two citizens. The reasonableness of restrictions imposed on fundamental rights is determined by judiciary, not by parliament. The purpose of reasonable restriction is to maintain a balance between individual and social control. That's correct. Because we have to ensure that every citizen has right, not one particular citizen gets the rights. 1 and 3. Correct, 1 and 3. 63. With reference to the definition of a state under Article 12 of Indian Constitution, consider following statements. The term state includes union, state, all the state agencies, all the local bodies, all the entities which are significantly financed or supported by state, which are working on behalf of a state. That is a state. Private body performing public functions is also a state, can be considered as a state. Like LIC is a state. So, second is correct. Actions of institutions like LIC and ONGC can be challenged in court for violating fundamental rights. That is correct. As I explained, LIC is also a state. Only 2. 64. With reference to Article 13 of Constitution of India, which of the following can be declared void? Ordinance issued by the President, because all of these are subject to judicial review. So question is asking which of these are subject to judicial review, because anything that is subject to judicial review can be struck down by court if it violates the provisions of Constitution, if it is not consistent with Indian Constitution. Customs usages that have force of law, they can be struck down. Rules, regulations and notifications issued by or under delegated legislation means legislation enacted on behalf of Parliament or on behalf of state legislature. Resolutions are not the laws, they don't have force of law, and something that doesn't have force of law is not subject to judicial review. So there's no need to strike it down in case it violates the provisions of Constitution. Select the correct answer. 1, 2, 3. 65. With reference to the fundamental rights enshrined in Part 3 of Constitution, consider following. The right to equality of opportunity in matters of public employment is available only to citizens. That's correct. Foreigners do not have access to employment under a state in India. Only Indian citizens can have access to employment under the state. Both citizens and foreigners are equally entitled to protection of life and personal liberty under Article 21. That is extended to both. The freedom to form associations is guaranteed to all persons, including foreigners. No, this is available only to citizens of India. Protection in respect of conviction for offences under Article 20 is not available to enemies or enemy aliens. How many are correct? Only 2. 1 and 2 are correct, 3 and 4 are wrong. 66. Consider the following statements with respect to Article 17, that is protection against untouchability. It abolishes untouchability and forbids its practice. Correct. The right is available against private individuals. Of course, untouchability is to be practiced by citizens against citizens. A state cannot indulge in untouchability. The term untouchability has not been defined in Constitution. That's correct. What constitutes? Was defined under the provisions of Protection of Civil Rights Act, Untouchability Offences Act 1955, PCRA 1976, and then it was further expanded under SC/ST Act of 1989 to give safety against the old practices which were considered untouchable. 1, 2, 3, all are correct here. 67. With reference to the freedom of movement under Article 19 of Indian Constitution, consider the statements. This freedom aims to reinforce the idea of national unity and integration. That's correct. The states can impose reasonable restrictions. That is correct. On freedom in the interest of the general public and to protect the rights and interest of scheduled tribes, not caste, scheduled tribes. Except this word, everything is correct. Scheduled tribes. So tribal areas are kept out of bound for outsiders in many states, so that tribals can remain safe, their rights are not infringed. Restrictions on the entry of outsiders into certain tribal areas are intended to safeguard cultural and economic rights of scheduled tribes. That's correct. 1 and 3. 68. Which of the following statement is correct in the context of constitutional reforms introduced by the bill through British through various acts? The Government of India Act 1935 introduced diarchy at center, abolished diarchy at provincial level, introduced diarchy at center. So at center, the subjects were divided into transferred category and the reserved category. Indian Council Act of 1909 introduced communal representation for Muslims and landlords, not for Sikhs and Anglo-Indians. Sikhs, Anglo-Indians, Indian Christians and Europeans were given separate electorates by the Act of 1919. The Indian Council Act of 1992 gave legislature power to discuss budget but not power to vote on budget. Indians were given power to discuss budget but they could not vote on the provisions of budget. 1 and 3 are correct. B. Originally, the Constitution of India lays down which of the following provisions are related to citizenship. Various modes of acquiring citizenship after the commencement, that is not through Constitution, that is through Citizenship Act 1955. The procedure for the registering persons of Indian origin residing outside, that is there. They could register with any council or any kind of embassy. The framework for granting citizenship to individuals who migrated to Indian Pakistan, that was there. So 2 and 3, not 1. Consider following statements with reference to Article 14. Article 14 guarantees only equality before law as well as equal protection of law. Equality before law as well as equal protection of law, both are mentioned here. According to Supreme Court, Article 14 is not violated if equals and unequals are treated differently. Only equals are to be treated equally. Equal treatment to persons placed in unequal circumstances amounts to inequality. That is the meaning of equal protection of law. 2 is correct. 71. Which of the following situations may lead to permissible discrimination among citizens under Indian Constitution despite citizens enjoying equal civil and political rights? When Parliament makes residence within a state a prerequisite for public employment, that's a reasonable restriction or reasonable discrimination. When a state extends special benefits to its residents concerning rights that are not guaranteed as fundamental rights, that is also reasonable classification. When special provisions are made for safeguarding the interests of scheduled tribe, that is also there, like restrictions on entry of outsiders in tribal areas. All the 3 here are correct. D. 72. With reference to the constitutional provisions regarding acceptance of titles and emoluments from foreign state, consider following statements. A foreign national holding any office or profit under the Indian state cannot accept any title without the permission or prior consent. That is correct. Without the prior consent of the President of India. That is correct. Indian citizen holding any office or profit under Indian state are prohibited. Again, without the prior consent of the President. Both are correct. 73. With reference to Article 21A of Indian Constitution, 21A, compulsory education, primary education, 6 to 14 years of age to the kids. It guarantees free and compulsory education to all children between the age of 6 and 14 years. That is correct. The right to higher education or professional education is also included. That is not correct. The Article 21A was inserted into Constitution through 86 Amendment Act 2002 and came into force on 1st April 2004. Remember that also. 1 and 3 are correct. 2 is wrong. 74. With reference to Article 29 of Indian Constitution, consider following statements. The protection granted under Article 29 is available only to religious and linguistic minorities. This is available to all, not just minorities. Anybody having its own distinct language, distinct culture can take steps to protect and promote it. The right to conserve language under Article 29 includes right to agitate. Of course, if that is violated, they can indulge in protest. Denial of admission to an education institution funded by state solely on the basis of language is prohibited. That's correct. 2 and 3, only 2. Consider following statements with reference to right to constitutional remedies under Article 32 and the Supreme Court can issue writs only for enforcement of fundamental rights, but not for other rights. So, High Court can issue writs under Article 226 not only for the enforcement of fundamental rights, but for the enforcement of any other right also. But Supreme Court can use this special power provided by Article 32 only for the enforcement of fundamental rights. Article 32 itself is a fundamental right, of course, because if it is taken away, then very purpose of having fundamental rights would get lost. Parliament can empower courts other than Supreme Court and High Court to issue writs. That's correct. 2 and 3. Consider following pairs regarding amendments related to DPSPs. 42nd Amendment Act safeguarding forest and wildlife. Correct. 44th Amendment Act minimizing inequality, that is also correct. 86 primary education, correct. 97 cooperative societies, correct. 1, 2, 3, 4 all are correctly matched. 77 consider following statements regarding fundamental duties. Fundamental duties are applicable only to citizens. Fundamental duties are non-justiciable, but Parliament can enforce them through legislation. That's correct. Parliament can enforce any of the provision of Constitution by making a suitable law for that purpose. So fundamental duties can also be made compulsory. Only 2. 78 consider following statements regarding Constitution amendment. It can be introduced in either House of Parliament without prior recommendation. That's correct. In case of disagreement, there is no provision of joint sitting. That is available only in case of normal laws. In case of Constitution Amendment Bill, joint sitting cannot be held. President of India cannot return Constitution Amendment Bill for reconsideration. There is no suspensive veto. President will have to accept and sign it. Correct one? Only 1. 79. Which of the following provisions are introduced in Indian Council Act 1861? The Viceroy was empowered to issue ordinances. That's correct. Ordinance making power comes into existence here, 1861. The Act marked the beginning of representative institutions. Indians could participate in the lawmaking process. They could become members of legislature. It initiated the process of decentralization because 1857 revolt opened the eyes of British. British realized that the gap between the people and the government was too big. Because of that, the masses of people was not reaching the top. So they took steps to decentralize the functioning of government after 1858, and 1861 Act was one step in that direction. 1, 2, 3, all are correct. 80. Consider following statements regarding interim government. Liaquat Ali Khan was appointed as finance minister. He was a member of Muslim League. Initially, Muslim League did not join the interim government when it was formed in September 1946. The League joined it in October 1946 to break it from within or to make it dysfunctional. And Liaquat Ali Khan got, or he demanded finance member, he got finance membership. Sardar Patel was in charge of Department of Home Affairs and Information Broadcasting, correct. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was head of Department of FAO or Food and Agriculture. All 3 are correct. So these were the questions related to polity, constitution and governance, the policy and framework of Indian constitution or Indian system of governance. Now you have questions regarding current developments from 81 to 100. Discipline is like your specific location of your house on the map. So sometimes if somebody doesn't have proper address, sometimes the postman cannot find the address. So instead of just using normal pin 4 by 4 square meter areas have been given a particular digital address under the system so that each and every house can be perfectly, clearly, easily located, and that is the scheme of Discipline. Department of Post has started it. Discipline assigns a unique geospatial address. That's correct. It requires no personal information. That's wrong. Discipline can be particularly useful in areas where unstructured or formal addressing is not possible, where addresses are not proper, because at times in cities things are so congested, it's very difficult to find the right address. 1 and 3. H2, with reference to poverty measurement, consider foreign statement. World Bank now uses a higher poverty line of $3 per day. That's correct. India's extreme poverty has shown a declining over the past. That is correct. The number as well as percentage both are declining now. 83. The bilateral military exercise Nomadic Elephant held between India and a strategically located Mongolia carries this. The country lies northern hemisphere, and that's correct. This is with Mongolia, landlocked, of course. It doesn't share border with India because Mongolia is that side of China. So this is Nomadic Elephant is with Mongolia. 1 and 2 only. 84. With reference to recent UN Population Fund 2025 consider following points. India's TFR has fallen down to 1.9. 2.1 is considered to be replacement level, and India has reached 1.9, much below a replacement level fertility rate. Despite a declining TFR, India's population is projected to grow because of younger segment of population, because most of Indians are getting their lifespan increased as availability of health and nutrition, all these things improve. So population will settle something at a kind of number of something around 170 crore. Today we are around 144, 145 crores. So this will grow in spite of the fact that we have reached much below TFR. TFR we have come down from that, but the lifespan is increasing. That's the reason. China is not the most populous. India has overtaken China as the most populous nation. 1 and 2, third is wrong. In light of recent debates regarding vacancy of Deputy Speaker's office in Lok Sabha, consider the statement. Constitution mandates the election of Deputy Speaker Lok Sabha, but doesn't prescribe the time frame. That's correct. As per the established parliamentary convention in India, Deputy Speaker is usually elected from the members. Not from the members, basically. This post is generally given to the opposition party. And since this is generally given to opposition party, that's why the office of Deputy Speaker is lying vacant. Since independence office of Deputy Speaker has always been filled within the first session, not first session. First session is for election of a speaker. Second or third session is generally used to elect the person for Deputy Speaker. That is wrong. How many correct? Only 1. Second is wrong, third is wrong. 86. Recently, Falcon 9 launch of Axiom SpaceX for mission. This is. So you have to look at the fuel. LOX, liquid oxygen. LOX means liquid oxygen. It's written here itself. Is used as an oxidizer. That's correct. Hydrogen is fuel. LOX is oxidizer. Must be stored at a cryogenic temperature so that it remains in liquid form. LOX is a fuel. LOX is not a fuel. Hydrogen is a fuel. LOX is a burner. So you have to remember hydrogen is fuel, oxygen is burner or oxidizer. 1 and 2. 87. The Bureau of Energy Efficiency has proposed setting default temperature. Suppose your temperature in AC is 16, and if you make it 18 or you make it 20 or 22, because room temperature is 25. So even if the temperature comes down in your room to 25, the AC compressor keeps on running, keeps on consuming power, and people are not even aware how does it work. They think that if it is 16 or 18 or 20, air will come cooler. Air will not come cooler. Air will have the same temperature, only the compressor will cut off at this particular temperature when your room has reached, and 16 is like a freezing temperature. So never set your AC thermostat below 22. Setting a higher default temperature in air conditioning can significantly reduce energy consumption. That's correct. A reason why humidity levels affect the actual temperature, because humidity also plays important role in making you feel how much is the temperature. So both are correct here. 88. With reference to India's participation in multinational exercise, consider following statement. Conquest, again India, Mongolia. Conquest is multilateral peacekeeping exercise hosted by Mongolia, that's correct. Indian Army has not been participating since beginning. Indian Army started participating in 2006. Only one. 89. With reference to 2025 UN Ocean Conference, consider following statement. 2025 edition of UN Ocean Conference was hosted by France and Costa Rica. The conference focuses on reviewing global progress towards implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 14. The previous two editions were held. Lisbon is correct, but not in Stockholm. New York, not in Stockholm. That is wrong here. Only 1 and 2. That is 2. 90. With reference to the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction agreement, look at the statements. The agreement is a legally binding international treaty, that's correct. It aims to regulate the conservation and sustainable use, that's correct. The agreement allows exclusive rights to coastal area. There is no provision of exclusive rights here or exclusive zones in this. Only 1 and 2. With reference to recently launched Sahav portals, consider following statements. It is a GIS-based decision support system aimed at enhancing marine resilience, that's correct. The portal has been recognized as digital public good, that's correct. It was not launched by Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Earth Sciences, not Environment. 1 and 2, third is wrong. 92. Consider following statement with reference to Government of India's recent approach to industry. The government is shifting its focus from subsidy-based support to regulatory incentives. Idea is to make easy governance. Idea is to make the government system pro-businesses so that minimum restrictions are faced and productivity is maximum with maximum quality. Land acquisition facilitation can be used as non-subsidy support, that is correct. Both are correct here. 93. Recently, Reserve Bank of India reduced CRR and repo rate. A reduction in CRR increases the lending resources available with the bank, because cash reserve ratio is the amount of resources the bank has to keep in cash with the itself or with the central bank, so that once that is reduced, the banks have more fund to lend. A decrease in repo rate directly increases interest earning. No, not really. A decrease doesn't really affect that much, because CRR, a decrease in repo rate directly increases interest earning on CRR. It doesn't really affect CRR balance, because CRR is non-interest paying money. Only 1. Consider the following statements with reference to the Global Gender Gap Report. It's released annually by World Economic Forum, not by World Bank. So not World Bank, but WEF, World Economic Forum. The 2025 edition in India's overall gender was less than global average, that's correct. The report includes indicators such as wage inequality, correct. Only 1 is wrong here. 2 are correct, so option is B. With reference to recent amendment in SEZ rules for semiconductor and electronic component, read the statement. The minimum land requirement for setting up of SEZ has been reduced, that's correct. The SEZ units can now sell goods in domestic market by paying the applicable duties, that's correct. Both are correct here. Option is C. Consider following statement with reference to recent reduction in basic custom duty BCD. Lowering of BCD is expected to increase supply of edible oil, because imports are becoming cheaper. Imports become cheaper if customs duty is reduced. With reduced BCD, imported edible oil will face higher import cost, no lower import cost. The primary intent behind the tariff is to ease the inflationary pressure, because if imports are cheaper, inflation will cool down. People will have access to cheaper oil. 1 and 3. 97. Consider following statements regarding International Organization for Marine Needs. India is currently the vice president and Brazil is the president. That's correct. Brazil is president, India is vice president. Directorate General of Lighthouse, this is representing. That's correct. Both are correct. 98. With reference to Agri-Tech initiative, Agri-Tech aims to create a unified platform for farmers. That's correct. It includes creating a unique digital ID for each farmer. That's correct. The Agri-Tech platform is being implemented by Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, that's the name of ministry, not rural development. 1 and 2, only 2. 19. With reference to geographical location of Cyprus and Croatia, consider this. Cyprus is located in the Mediterranean. That's correct. Croatia has a coastline along Adriatic Sea. Look at across Italy, one side Italy, other side Croatia. Both are correct. The last question here, with reference to graded response action plan, this is followed in NCR region and Commission for Air Quality Management is responsible for it. So this is NCR area, both are correct here. So dear students, this was discussion of your test paper of Indian polity governance. I hope all of you have reviewed your answers. In case still you have any doubt, difficulty, you're always free to contact me through teacher support, or you can come and see me here in office. I'm always here for you. So keep working hard, keep doing better and better. All the best. God bless you.